Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Starseed Chats. I'm Lily Nova, and I have Tony Rodrigues here with us. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit different topic than usual about secret space programs and some other cool things that Tony is up to these days. And yeah, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, Tony?
Yeah, I hope I'm sticking around here. I've been laggy, a little bit of tech diff going on, so I'm trying to
every
sort that all out.
every time.
hmm Um,
Yeah, I think
some
we're good.
stuff. Yeah. So how's it going? Thanks for having me, Lily. It's great to be here. You look great.
Thank you. Uh-oh, you're lagging a little bit. Oh no.
There.
Okay, you're back. You're back. Okay, hopefully
I think I've sorted it all out. Yeah.
Okay, all right, awesome. Yeah, doing very well. I'll give a little bit of an introduction background of how I met Tony. So, with this whole UFO thing and everything that's going on, my introduction to it was, well, I started shooting astrophotography, and then I started being visited by UFOs. And now I teach, it took me down like a spiritual path, and I've gotten kind of the crash course in a lot of things and making contact with these beings. I didn't know too much about like the secret space programs or, anything like that. But back in May, I went to a secret space program conference. I had no idea what to expect, and it just blew open so many doors. Like, it was very mind blowing. And that's where I met Tony. And he's a really awesome guy.
Thanks. We met probably in the last 5 minutes of the whole thing. We kept passing each other the whole. It was a great conference. Tyler and Aaron threw it. The Journey to Truth guys put on that conference, and they knocked it out of the park. And everybody was super, very supportive and it was overwhelming to me. I was like, couldn't believe the reception I got. So that was been
Yeah.
cool. The book came out. Things have been kind of on a plane right now. It's kind of like the book came out, and we did the conference, and it kind of settled down for me. I kind of got back to normal life, but I've got a couple big conferences coming up, and just it's still available. So I haven't been doing a ton of talks lately, and I've kind of went back to 3D life, which it's been a very long time. In the last year, because I was writing the book, I was double timing a lot of stuff, and I didn't realize how much I was like burning the candle at both ends during that time until it was gone, until I got caught up. And so
Yeah.
it's been cool.
Yeah. Lakeside Laura was wondering when book number 2 is coming out.
It's funny. I was just working on it today. So I'm having kind of an electronics thing. I don't want to be over the top like conspiracy theorist person, but since I've begun to speak publicly, like I've had electrical problems, like ever since I spoke publicly, and I've had several phone hackings, I've had several computers. So I'm going to a conference in Silicon Valley, and I expect more interference. Like even the conference people are starting to talk about, the internet dropping on them, and there's a lot of things going wrong. So as soon as I get back from that, it's the weekend after next that I'm going, the 17th, 18th, and 19th in San Jose, California.
Mhm.
And then as soon as I get back from that, I'm throwing away all my electronics and buying new phone, new computer, everything, so that it's brand new. I might even do the router and new VPN. And then that will transfer the new book into there. So the book is in a very complicated outline form, and there's 2 or 3 chapters that are close to being done right now. But it's the second book is not a congruent, not a linear story like the first one. It's
Mhm.
kind of a collection of small stories that blend together with a reveal at the end.
Mhm.
Is the plan? That's the plan.
Yeah. So for those who don't know Tony, he wrote a book sharing. Okay, so a little bit of background. You started having memories that started coming up for you, right? So he realized that he was in this secret space program that he didn't know about. And you started having memories suddenly came back of all of these different things. Could you share a little bit? Because I feel like some people, they may start having, well, now we're starting to have memories coming up of us being on spaceships or stuff like that. A lot of people that I talk to are starting to have those, or memories of practicing telekinesis in a spaceship, things like that. So,
It's funny that it's not common. I mean, that it's not uncommon. Like it's actually kind of common, especially in this community. People are drawn to the community because they've had something happen. They may not even be aware of it. They, we're talking about ETs and government programs that erase your memory, and so it's rare to get your memory back. But on a certain level, you kind of never do lose your memory. You have that hunch, and you just get drawn into areas. So
mhm.
I always knew I was abducted, the original abduction experience when I was 10 years old. And I couldn't really make sense of it throughout my life. And I kept having new memories pop up and it didn't make sense. And I got an MRI on my head, an MRI scan in May of 2015. And just a week or two later, I found the Randy Kramer and how he explained that they take you for 20 years and then put you back the same night. And I went, oh my God, all the other memories that I had, because I had bits and pieces all along of fragmented memories. And I knew that I was taken, but I just never saw anything when I researched it that made sense. I didn't find it in the Bible. I didn't find it in even in ufology. It's kind of really bland when you are when you're an experiencer, you're an abductee or somebody, and you study ufology, you read the stories. It's really kind of tasteless. It's not a lot you can sink your teeth into to jog your memory. It's on purpose. But when I heard that and I went, oh my God, they took me for all that time. That's what happened. I got the entirety of that book, of the Ceres Colony Cavalier book, in about 3 days. Like big
Wow.
chunks, dumps of memory because I accepted it, because all these strange memories that I didn't make sense, because when could have that happened? When could I have been 25 years old on a spaceship? Because I was 25 years old in Michigan. I have the memory of that too. So there were two of me. It's complicated to explain to somebody that never heard of it before. But I think the book does a good job of kind of making sense of it all. Like I said, Ceres Colony Cavalier, my first book, is linear. It's rare because a lot of people that get their memories back don't have the linear experience. They can't articulate it in a linear way because they just don't have all the memories back. A lot of people get a small percentage or less than half of their memory of what they experienced. And it's not linear. It doesn't make sense. So I was
Mhm.
lucky. And there are a lot of different reasons. There are a lot of people, you know what I mean? Like it's to be studied in the future. Who knows why I got my memories back the way I did. There's a lot of different reasons. And I
Maybe
don't even know.
divine planning, divine timing.
Hope so. Right. So isn't everything right. So that's how I feel. Like I'm an optimist to the core, and I think that everything is, even misfortune
Hmm.
can be a blessing if it depends on how you intend it, what you intend to do with it. So anyhow, that
Hmm.
was the book. The second book is kind of filling in the rough edges that are missing in that book, and then some other things, and kind of goes down more of a metaphysical, spiritual path, because I had to sort out what the hell happened to me throughout that, and maybe what I mean, the divine end of it. I got to feel that I am not alone in my efforts, and I haven't been. And I've been very blessed to have I've met people at the right time in my life that have helped me get as far as I have by talking about this and sharing the experience that I went through, which wasn't necessarily great. It was not love and light. What I went through, I was very badly abused in the programs, and a lot of people are. And I think the universe kind of spit me out as to voice that.
Hmm. Yeah. So what it sounds like, there are just like tons of different types of programs out there, and some are not very good. Like a majority of the people, I think there was one woman at the SSP conference. I cannot remember her name, but she, during her like program where she gained her memories back, she was like with her star family. I think they looked gray like. I don't remember her name. It was a woman. She actually had a positive experience, but all the other ones were like negative.
There was a few there. Was it? I might have been Rebecca Rose. She spoke?
I
Jackie
don't.
Kenner spoke about her experience. There were a few others. It was a while ago, and I'm a scatterbrain, I think.
I think it might have been Jackie, maybe.
So what's true? What we're finding is because we're getting bits and pieces of the puzzle. Like I don't know it all. I'm not somebody that's going to connect all the dots for somebody. I might bring something to the table, but I don't know it all. And what we're doing is we're getting other people's testimonies and kind of filling in the cracks of what's. I'm seeing that. Hi, Laura. And
oh, it was Jackie.
so we're getting the cracks filled in. We're getting a picture, the puzzle pieces put together, and we're starting to see a pixelated picture kind of become more clearer when we're talking about the secret space programs. And it's kind of, even the term secret space programs kind of played out. So now it's like, I think deep space program or advanced space program, because that's really what it is. They've been at it for a long time. And what happens is every time a group of people get up there and they get access to the stuff, they splinter off and make their own. They do their own corporation. So it's all under an umbrella of a corporate organization, the human ones and the local ETs. But what's true is that we're being visited. These programs interact with an endless amount of ETs. Like the cosmos it's teeming with life up there, and it's not just a small set of ETs. It's endless. We're never going to meet all the ETs. In our lifetime, or in the entire 1,000 years of all the spaceships that go up there, we're never going to go and meet all the different species that there are.
I might be able to.
Well, there's other things that we're unaware of, but I'm just saying that the universe is a very big place, and the space programs have gotten to the level to where they can travel very far instantly, and so it's not the way that we've been taught, like in Star Wars or Star Trek, where it takes forever to get to the next star system. They can get there and back almost immediately. Yeah. And keep exploring. And there are trillions of star systems available. So that's kind of the deal, with why the program. So these guys that went into space, like the Germans, for instance, and then they make contact, make friends. And then the program morphs off, splinters off into different colonies and different technologies. And so it's really kind of it's not easily said in one breath what the secret space program encompasses.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Very infinite. And another thing is time travel. Like
Right.
that's involved also. That's what's racking my brain, because I didn't really know too much. I hadn't really come across that much before the SSP, and then after that it's like I was ready for that next dose of truth, and I started coming across more, even like during readings for people. I've had a few times beings come through that it's them from the future, and they mention time traveler, like even some of us are time travelers.
Yes. And so that's kind of, and I don't think as humans, I also believe this, as humans, in the way that our brains are constructed, we really can't grasp the mechanics of time travel. We just can't. So everybody you talk to, when I talk about the time travel aspect of what happened to me, that's where I get the 1,000-yard stare, and that's where I lose people. People believe in UFOs and ETs and that they're here and everything. And then when you start talking about the time travel aspect, where you're taken and then age regressed and put back the same night that you were taken, but it's been 20 years, you really lose people. And it's hard to keep up, because we're just not developed that way. We're not taught anything in any kind of that it exists. And we just don't think that way. We think in a linear way. Time travel is not, in fact.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And what got, even for me, like whenever I first heard about like the 20 and back, and I was like, really? Like it does sound pretty far out there. But like I said, then I started coming across more things that just pointed to that. And even some of the beings that I've been visited by are other versions of me, either from the future or parallel reality.
That's right. So what we found is, in the early program that I was in, and like it's really hard to explain without the book, or it's really a long explanation. But in the first program I was in a human program on Earth, and we were an offshoot of Grill Flame, a CIA program that was basically remote viewing and trying to see the future, and so whatever. But that program, what that taught me was that I could communicate with myself in the future and in the past, and we were getting information from the future and from the past. As kids, they were drugging us and bringing us near to death, and we would channel our not only ourselves but other people would come through. And this was something that they had on a military grade level that they were using in the field. And so we were kids that were using that program as a first stop, and that we've adapted that. You asked me about tier 3. Well, my talks with Tony that I use. I have a Patreon show that I was going to film a little bit of it tonight, but tomorrow night it'll get filmed. But I have a Patreon show and a small following because I was getting deleted. I was getting a lot of YouTube scrubbed. But on there, I started a third tier that's people that are using the methods that we described in something called the Purple series. And it's kind of like an offshoot of what I found from that CIA document that we've seen so many people go viral with on TikTok, talking about it, manifestation, CIA manifestation. And what I remembered from experiencing it in Grill Flame, in Inyokern, in the first years that I was there, back in my 20 years. What I remembered, and then what we discovered on top of some other techniques. So we made a group that does it, and what we found is that the future and the past are really easily connected to once you get into a higher focus state. Mm-hmm. Well, I hope I'm not losing people. I'm not reading the chat. I'm scared to read the chat,
fine.
Lily.
You're fine. No, you're fine. Everybody's cool. Somebody did ask where to get your book, and I put Tony's book in the description. There's a link to it in the description, and it's on Amazon.
And should be a link to it on my website, TonyRodrigues.com. So just my name, no space.com. There should be a link there, and there's a link to my Patreon channel there, and a bunch of other stuff, and free interviews too.
Awesome. So they're saying that I sound a little quiet. Can you guys hear me better now? I'm turning my volume up. Can you hear me better now?
I can. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I definitely want to go into the there's just like so much with that. The remote viewing that you do. I wanted to ask a little bit more about what did I want to actually we can go into that right now. That's fine. So remote viewing. So this is something that you were doing while in this program, and then whenever your memories came back, you kind of got interested in it again and started,
Well, what happened is I was having guests on my show, and we started really just learning. When you host one of these shows, the guests come on and teach you a lot of stuff, and over time, I kept learning the stuff, and at the same time researching what I went through. If you read my book, it's like very hard for somebody to swallow. Like when I go to that conference next week, I do expect to meet some professional skeptics, and I have to defend myself on stage. I think that's going to take place at this next conference.
Oh, wow.
But fortunately, I have a good amount of proof, substantiating evidence behind my claims. I'm not just somebody that just, comes up here and says, whatever, I was a general in space and this is happening in space and that's it. And there's no proof. I've got things, evidence behind me. And I was researched in 2015 by Dr. Sala and a bunch of other researchers. And so I had things on the record back then that were discovered later that, helped validate my story. So I've got a little bit of defense. Mm-hmm. But what I learned during my show was that the things that I was remembering, the technology that I'd experienced back in 1982 in a trauma-based mind control program that turned into a remote view program, was actually manipulating things, and it went on to grow. So I found the documents, not only the funding documents from that same summer that I was there, and the paper trail, kind of like the wake of that program that I found in the CIA declassified government library, declassified library.gov, found the documents there. But then I saw what it grew into. And when I started to research that, I went, oh, that's what they did. You know what I mean? Like I got to see a clearer picture. And I kept saying, we need to start a group and do this. We need to get a group of people, because the military learned that because they weaponized it. So they took that document basically, and they weren't only remote viewing, they were altering the future. They were altering military operations by special forces, and they were actually, in fact, killing people. they could heal people and they could kill people. So what they found when they weaponized it was when they had more than one person all go into a higher focus state with the same intention on the same target, that they had greater results. They were testing soldiers that were injured at Fort Meade, in the hospital in Fort Meade, because they were being monitored every day so they could measure the results. And they would get a group of soldiers that were highly trained to go into higher focus states and go into the state of mind and kind of astrally either heal or hurt a soldier that was already wounded laying in the hospital. And then the doctors, unbeknownst to the medical staff, they were documenting what was happening, and then they poured over the evidence and they perfected it. Then the entire program said, it doesn't work, we classified it, we pulled the plug. It got officially canceled once they reached that point, once they found out that they were actually inducing heart attacks and they were killing people. So then the program got scrubbed and they said, nope, we spent $30 million and nothing became of it. Sorry, my bad. Like that was what the CIA did. Like they do with all their projects, really, the Gemini program, and there's on and on and on. When I remember that stuff, I put it to test with. There's a document that I have and kind of a guide. I was thinking, man, this is powerful. I should sell this and get rich overnight. But really, there's a lot of it. It's not something that you can do. There's a lot of plagiarism in there. And so it's kind of a free thing. And what it is the group that we do, we do remote viewing as an exercise, kind of like lifting weights to get better at it. But that's not the goal of the group. Remote viewing is actually not that great compared to many of the other things that you can do when you're talking about manipulating the world in the future, manipulating things. So, but we do remote viewing. Like I have a bucket that I have in my garage, and I put stuff in the bucket, and then every week we kind of see who, tell me what was in the bucket. And it's freaky how people, they might not get the bucket. They'll get the carpet or the shoes that are on the floor next to the bucket. They'll see things, but it's freaky that it's pretty effective. The technique that we've outlined that we do works, and it's freaky, but we do it for other things. We've done other remote views, like deep remote views. We've done healing. Everybody wants to be healed. So we kind of get away from that because the line is miles long. When you say, hey, we can use this group and heal people, then all of a sudden there's like, a million people on your doorstep that all are like, please help me out. And so It's not what it's about, but we're working it so that we can each kind of pick a goal for each person individually in the group, and then the whole group work on that goal with them in a higher focus state meditation that we do. We sometimes we synchronize all at the same time, and sometimes we don't. I hope I'm not rambling, and I'm afraid to look at the chat.
No, you're fine, and it's been good, like all good stuff. So.
All right, I'm gonna look. I'm gonna minimize.
Take a peek.
And have
for
a look
sharing
at
your experience. Thank you for sharing your experience. I believe you. There was a few other ones, really nice ones. Ocean. Tony, your story, your experiences can help a lot of people. And Laura asked, she said, tell us about the arcs. Do you know?
So if you know about researcher Mary Rodwell, we coming from out of Exopolitics, Dr. Sala's channel, and Elena, we've had information about arcs, ancient ET arcs that are buried around the world. That supposedly there's one in sorry, I'm going to close the chat now because I'm getting distracted by you guys. Thanks, you guys, and I want to say, everybody, you guys are being great to me, so thank you so much.
So the arcs.
Yeah, so the arcs are we did it. We were like, man, let's go check these out. There's an arc in the Atlantic. Let's go down there and remote view, and we got a few details. So everybody had kind of a different experience, and what it is I take notes and pour over the info. But we did see some things that a few weeks later other insiders said too, that we got early. You know what I mean? We just did it amongst ourselves in our group. It's not to put out on YouTube or get hits. There's no shock value that we're working for. It's just for us. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of weeks later, other people were coming out with details on the arcs that matched exactly what we said. And so it was freaky. So we went back again. So Mary Rodwell wanted us to look at the Romanian pyramid down there and find out who was behind the arcs. And the entire group overwhelmingly concluded that the ancient people that put the arcs together and put the arcs that were humans, versions of humans.
Wow.
So we were wondering if they were reptilian, or what species built these arcs and what for? What is the reason? And we got a few. We kind of glanced off a few things, but basically everybody in the group came back with human. They were humans, ancient humans, and that there's a great deal under the Bosnian pyramid. That there's a cavern down there with one of the arcs as well, and in fact that there are many arcs and they're all over the place. And
do you think this could stem from like the fall of Atlantis? Possibly.
I think it was. You know what? I'd have to go back over my notes. But I think
I've been looking into Atlantis more lately, and I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I'm learning as I go as well.
I think that they were before Atlantis, to be honest. I mean, that's my
personal before
opinion, that the arcs were put here before then. That there was a primordial time on the Earth that there were actually many species living here, but kind of like we see in the movies. So whenever you go to another planet in a movie, there's not a bunch of roads connecting everything. It's just one little town out in the desert. And like that's what they show in all this. But it was kind of like that there were many different species and civilizations that had settled here for doing business, and I'm talking millions of years ago, and one species that was in charge of everything. And they were all kind of not working together, and it was a primordial way. So they all had their own thing. And then that's kind of so they individually had different agendas. So whatever evolved into Atlantis. I kind of myself personally try to sidestep Atlantis, just because it's such a dense matter of subject. There's so many people that have weighed in on it, so that anything that you present is kind of somebody else has already said that. So I kind of leave Atlantis be. I don't personally have experiences with any of that, but like I said, the arcs. It's my opinion that the arcs are older than that.
Yeah, no, yeah, that definitely makes sense.
And it's just an opinion, Lord. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the chat myself. Any questions in there?
Yes, guys, please smack the thumbs up button. Hit the like button. Somebody asked, how is remote viewing different from using psychic abilities? So it's like the same, right?
Exactly. It's not different. It's exactly the same. So that's what I mean. It falls into the toolkit. So what we're doing is, if I could put this all in a nutshell, there's a cleanse, there's intention, and then there's an actual method of going into higher focus states. So this is part of the gateway voyage. So the Monroe Institute, we use shades of that for the binaural sounds, and we use monoatomics and a few other things that people take. Everybody has their own little, technique that they do to get into a focus state. And I'm really a big fan of the Monroe Institute, of how they classified focus levels. So right now we're at focus 1, we're awake, and then you get drowsy at focus 2, and you're sleeping early sleep at 3, and you're deep sleeping at focus 4. Focus 10, you're kind of astral. You're in contact with outside of time space. So when you get outside of time space, you can look into the future, and then you can actually set intention on changing it and manipulating the future and saying, I don't want that to happen. We want to have, and what I found, what's true in that document is that the faster you change things, the greater the change, that there's a pushback, like there's a wave. So there's techniques to doing it. So you can remote view the future, the past, any distance. It's all the same because you're outside of time space. We're in a quantum hologram. It's based on a lot of the Stalking the Wild Pendulum, the Isaac Bentov. I think I sent you that PDF a long time ago. But it's a book, an old Russian quantum physicist, and it's based on the science of that, where your consciousness can click out of time space and then access the past and future and any distance away. And so remote viewing comes into that toolkit, but there are other things that the CIA did when they were learning it, that you can actually manipulate things, and that things work differently in that medium. So colors have, for instance, feelings, and colors have more tangible results in that medium than they do here. Like, if I can sit here in the room and literally be mad at you, It really doesn't change much. You might go, man, he's mad at me, and change your feelings, but you just go on about your day. You still can make a sandwich and do everything. But if we're in the astral realm and I'm mad at you or very angry, and I direct these emotions towards you, it actually has a great effect. So it can have a great effect on what's going on in the astral realm and in your future and past. So it's the different. There's a different medium and there's a different effect on what we're doing spiritually, consciously, what astrally. The words are all, whatever word you want to use. But once you get out of the time space hologram, the energy is different between consciousness than it is here, because we're locked inside a hologram here. We're locked in our body here. So
and everything's happening all at once.
That's right. It's more like a choose your own adventure. So when you look back at time, it's like a choose your own adventure book, the world that we live in. And when you get out of time space, you can jump ahead and kind of skip the chapter and pick a different choice.
Yeah, I have an example. So after these UFOs and ETs started visiting me, and eventually I started like meditating, and I began receiving visions, and they would show me things from like the past. And sometimes I've seen my future before, bits of it. I've tried reading my future again, and they're like, nope. They just gave me like a little taste. But I remote viewed the moon. Well, I asked if I could remote view the moon. And this was like maybe like 6 months ago at this point. And then I got like a strong like, no, not a good idea. So I was like, well, can I remote view the moon from a different time period? And then like, okay, green light. So I did that. And I actually want to ask you about this too. So I began receiving visions, remote viewing the moon. And I saw a Pleiadian man. I think I saw a mantis being, and then just a ton of other different ETs. And then I saw the moon open up, and then the center was like a structure, and there was like a red light in it, and it just kind of like opened up like that. But I don't know from which time period that was. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that all the people you described seeing there are still there, just like that. I think those species are up there. And there are predominant underground facilities that many different species are working together on the moon. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so defensive over the next coming conference because I'm kind of back into defense mode about everything.
No, you're fine here. This is a safe space.
But maybe that was back when it was just rolled off the line. So the general consensus is that I'm a big fan of William Tompkins' work. And I believe him when he said that, first off, it's not our moon, and second off, it's not a moon, that it has a lot more value. When you look at history and a lot of things and a lot of the circumstances about the current orbit of the moon and how it is, there's a lot of things that don't add up. And it makes more sense that it's it would be a very useful thing if you could turn its gravity on and off and move it around. It would be a tractor. So our prevailing defense against asteroids hitting the Earth, NASA's best right now, is shooting nuclear missiles at an asteroid, or putting another large heavy object next to the asteroid and pulling it away with its gravitational force like a tractor. And the ideal thing for that would be the moon. If you think about the moon as a tractor that can move planets in and out of orbit, you could grab another planet from far away and bring it into the habitable zone. You could destroy the world by moving it into the sun or out of the habitable zone. And you could flood the world if you moved it close, because the tide is 3 feet tall. But if you move the moon much closer, the tide could be 700-800 feet and cover the whole planet. And there would be a biblical flood, because they've never really figured out why there was a flood. But there's a great deal of evidence that there was a global flood. And I think it was the moon. Also, There's a lot of evidence of a much thicker, much more oxygenated atmosphere in the past. And if the moon flew close to us, it would rip off a lot of the atmosphere, and we'd have a much thinner atmosphere that we do today compared to when the dinosaurs were alive. So it makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of circumstances that line up with a lot of other whistleblowers that are saying the same thing. And
were you having that all totally makes sense. So the moon is something that's popular in just talking about secret space
the
program.
secret space program, right? It's the jumping off point. And for us, so I went back to the moon a few times, and later on in my service, when I was actually not so much a kid or being surgically altered and skipping through there. But we would go back. There were times when I went back. It's in the book, and it was a very advanced space station, a very advanced facility for even on top of what we had in Ceres, on Ceres colony. So the moon was very advanced, and it's basically an operating point for the solar system. There's a lot of advanced, and all of the technologies were based on power output, and the moon had one of the greater power outputs of all the space colonies, of all the colonies in the solar system. The moon had a great output, so that makes sense that it has a giant motor on the inside. That big red dot you saw, who knows what it is on the inside of it that gives it, but it was very powerful.
Yeah. And well, Lakeside Laura, I wanted to ask if you have or will you do QHHT? I don't think yours came back all naturally, right?
Right.
Okay.
So look, I've spoken out against. So I think that hypnotic regression is where you go. It's where you end up when you can't remember, when you have memories, and you have enough to chase down more memories. Regression. Do you do a QHHT? So I don't do it. So when you have a regression, it's a really good source, but it's also a very permanent procedure. It's like you get in touch with your higher self, and so I don't recommend it right out of the gate. I recommend working on your memories as much as you can for as long as you can, and I also recommend finding somebody that's very proficient, that's done many regressions, because it's to me, I liken it to getting to a tattoo artist. So I can get a tattoo gun, Lily. I can get a tattoo gun, and I can write a little thing on you. I can give you a nice little tattoo, but I'm not going to do a 3D. You know what I'm saying? A really high quality tattoo. You got to find a really talented artist. And QHHT is the same way. So there are some people that are not great at it, and there are some people that are stellar at it, that are gifted. And so I always tell people to go to that. So me personally, I haven't had one, and I'm on the fence, to be honest. I got invited, so I've had Suzanne Spooner. She was at the conference in May, and she's one of the better, well-known, renowned ones in the United States. She studied directly under Dolores Cannon, and she invited me out to do it. And I don't know. It's like I don't know if I'm ready for it or if I even need it. You got to be called to it. You'll get your regression exactly when you need to, because your higher self will make it happen. And
Right.
And I just kind of don't feel like, I think that I don't want to cloud up the water of my testimony, because I got so much back naturally, and a lot of the things that I got back checked out, and I got this far with the book. So I don't want to just spin up a cloud over the testimony just yet. Maybe after the second book, and go back. I love Suzanne, and I really do want to take her up on her offer, but I just don't know if I'm ready yet, at least today.
Yeah, no, and you've gotten so much done with without that. So, so the other night, I was laying down for bed, like meditating, and I was told that me and you were in the Orion constellation together at some point. They showed me the Orion constellation, and they also told me that you are from Ceres, or at least that's one of your origins.
So
how does that feel?
So
what do you think about that?
One of my clearer memories of my service in my 20 and back was of the trapezium. We were in the Orion Nebula. There was a war, and so it was a staging place. We were taking cargo there. So maybe, if you're getting that and it's a past life thing, I don't have access to that. But during my time there, I was in the Orion Nebula. I did go to that system, and that was one of the first times that I saw nebula, out the window.
It's beautiful.
There were times when we were in nebulas that I had to stay at my station and I couldn't look out the window. But during that one, we had lapses where we were waiting for ships to come and drop off cargo and collect cargo. Mm-hmm. And so we had time, and they would let us go and look out the window, and we would look out at the nebula. It was beautiful. And so, yeah. Wow, you're kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like, give me a moment here, Lily.
I don't know if this was from, a past life or parallel life, possibly ET versions of us working together in Orion, maybe for something different than, this, but in a way still connected.
I think that with the experiences that you're having and what you're going through, I don't think that you don't show the symptoms to me. You don't, to me, after having worked with so many people that have
Mm-hmm.
memories, that when I really put them to scrutiny, a lot of things pan out. To me, you don't come off as somebody that was in what I call category 2 or even category 1. So a human-based program or an Orion program, like the Draco program, like taken by the Draco. Like, you don't come off to me as a person like that. You come off with the experiences that you're having that are in real time, and with the abilities that you're good at. It looks like you're what I call a category 3 person, and that's dealing with everybody else. So
Mm-hmm.
other ETs that are kind of more benevolent, that are
Yeah.
outside of the human programs, that are outside of the local programs. My
Yeah.
eyes froze sideways.
Yeah. And thank you, Area 41 TV, for the super sticker, by the way. Yeah, I feel very I haven't had any interactions with negative. I don't like whenever I went to the conference, I was triggered by the information, but I was like, God, if there's something that I need to remember, please tell me what it is. And I saw visions of like a little Pleiadian girl and the parents, and I got that it had to do with a past life and the negative trafficking and all that stuff. But I don't feel like in this lifetime I have had anything like that. So then I was wondering, is this also a positive program that you're in, that we were in together, and that's how we know each other, is what I'm wondering.
I don't know. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So again, so this is a good example that if I got a QHHT session, so I have all these memories of the time that I went through, and that stretch of time and that role in that program was a negative experience. And so I'm speaking on that because there's a reason behind it, right? Like, I think that it's very important for my testimony, my book, to be in a historical context. Like, we can't be told after a disclosure that all these government programs are, kumbaya up there. It's very militarized. It's very inhumane what they're doing, what ETs are doing to us. And so, if I got a QHHT session, I might get in contact with my higher self and look at another lifetime ago or a separate lifetime ago where we were peers, we were bros, and we were on a good ship, and it was more like a Star Trek episode, but like that would blend. And so maybe that's why I kind of have a hunch not to do it, because right now I'm still on track. I'm still on track to put my testimony and what they are capable of doing to people in the spectrum of wrong things. It's important for me that that's known, and not to get back, not to bellyache, and not to have a pity party about what I went through. I think it's important for history, so that people, if we forget about slavery that the world had, the United States had slavery. If they erase every bit of slavery from our history books, we're not going to ever think it was possible, and it opens the door for it to happen again easily. So what they're doing with the slavery that I went through in the space programs needs to be in the history, because it needs to go away. We need to know that once we did that, and this is what happened, and it doesn't work, because these guys, every now and then somebody like Tony came through and could remember the torture and could remember it. And so, my testimony, I think maybe that's why I don't do the past life stuff. And even when I do the tier 3 and the meditating and everything, like, I kind of sidestep that.
Yeah, no, because I thought it was weird. I was like, do you not know who your star family is? Because I'm all about star family. Yeah, they were nudging me, so they wanted me to mention that to you. But yeah, what you're doing right now that's totally, much needed. You're helping a lot of people. So I understand why you'd want to, you're focusing on, that part. But just so you know, I think there's also, some positive, maybe eating cake and on a ship. Also sometimes.
Well,
super interesting.
And to be fair, like, even during the time that I was there, and I've caught criticism for saying this was that, even I was a slave up there for the Ceres Colony Corp, but it wasn't all bad.
Hmm.
It wasn't all bad. There were good days. So that not it can't rain every day, and it wasn't just a straight up torturous every single day. There were days that were okay. And so, I mean, that's just being real. That's just being truthful. Is that yes, it was a terrible situation. It was like being in prison. But there's it's not bad every day. Every now and then the sun comes out, and so that's kind of what happened. I'm just being honest.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
we're all not. This isn't our first rodeo. Not anybody that's watching this. We are a consciousness that keeps dipping into the quantum hologram to affect it and to grow and to help each other. It's easier to help each other here because we're locked in our bodies. So that's what we're doing, is helping each other and egging it on, the whole thing. But then when we go out of it, it's like, we just keep reincarnating. So we haven't done this once. This isn't a one and done. And, I'm not afraid of dying, because I'll just come back. I'll just come back, and you know what I mean? Like, I'll figure it out. I'll
Yeah.
have new challenges, new things to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to also ask you about, so like the moon and then Mars. So have you been to Mars? Because I know, like, I've heard Mars come up a lot.
Mhm.
And do you happen to know if those places are, if the negative stuff that was going on there is gone?
On Mars.
Yeah.
So, man, I don't know. I tell you what, currently, I don't know. So Mars, when we were there, we had big facilities. We had big areas on Mars, underground cities, in fact. And we didn't have all of Mars. There were other species there. There were other ETs there that had their own areas. So we couldn't fly anywhere. We had to get permission to fly in certain areas, but we had to get permission to land. So Mars was cut up. It was kind of like we were using a small area of it for ourselves. We had a little, a country on Mars that was humans, and then there were other things there. So who knows what it's become
Mm-hmm.
right now, if we've had more, more
Mm-hmm.
settlements there or less. I don't know.
Or if it's always been like negative, if there's some positive too. One of the first I received a vision whenever they were starting to show me different like past lives. At first, I didn't know what it was, but different scenes, different beings, and it was a man on Mars, and I got that this was another version of me, and I saw him just like 3 times, 2 or 3 times, just a quick vision, but yeah, I don't know too much more about that, but I just thought that was interesting. Um, yeah.
So I would say this, that Mars is somewhere that's not like Earth. So the Earth is cordoned off. So we are being left alone because whatever, we're a species, a super group consciousness on Earth, and it's got its own healthy biome. It is what it is. It's our home for an entire species. There are billions of people here. Mars is kind of in the future, billions of years in the future, from what Earth would be. Not a thriving biome, and just kind of real estate that still has solar energy being put into it, and an atmosphere. So it's cut up, and it's not classified between the ET species. So they can just go there. They're free to come down there and land, and they have to protect themselves. So the other thing is, everybody, and I'll say this to the chat, that I've seen a few comments where everybody's disappointed that ETs are bad, that ETs do bad things to us. But yet, I really caution thinking that they're evil. Even the human species, even the humans that had me, they had their own set of morals, and they had their own ways of justifying doing things, whether it was wrong or not. But it's about your perspective. Like, you have to do bad things. That's what life is. We do. You kill mosquitoes. I bet you're a mosquito killer. I bet you're a prolific mosquito killer. That's not very cool to the mosquitoes. You know what I mean? It just so happens, if you're a mosquito, it looks like you're an evil thing, but you're not. It's your perspective. And so these programs and all the ETs work the exact same way. They have their own perspective. They have their own agendas of things they need to do. And if we're in the way at the wrong time on the wrong day, then we're going to be victimized. And if we're not, and we're there in an opportune time, then we would be befriended. And so they work that way. I mean, it's about perspective. So a lot of them, of course, just like us, of course, I kill mosquitoes, but I try to avoid it, in my home, right? So I draw a line inside the door, and when a bug comes in, I got to kill it. But other than that, I have a lot of respect for all life, even if it's a damn mosquito. But I have a lot of respect for it. But what I'm saying is that there are times when I must do things that could be construed by another life form or by somebody watching as being a bad person, right? So I really think that's people tend to lump ETs as all good or all bad, and the good ones aren't all good either, because they have to do things in desperate times, and you might look at it and be turned off by it and say that, but it's about their perspective, like life demands actions, and they're not always benevolent.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for saying that. I agree 100%. 100%. Yeah, and I think a majority now, it feels like we have a lot of, beings that are looking out for us and trying to help us and work with us through all of this. So, but yeah, some.
Well, we're coming up on that time. So the other thing is that there was somebody in the chat that asked about the billionaires that want to go to Mars. It's like, this is what we're doing. We're spurning disclosure. So they're going to disclose. Obviously, that's the. Right now, they're all doing this with they got their little magician's handkerchief. They got their handkerchief and like, we're going to Mars, and there's going to be a reveal, and they're going to go, "Whoa, how'd you know about that? Look, this alien, he can talk." Like, there's going to be a disclosure. This is what's going on. This is, if we don't go into space, why would the aliens discuss anything with us? If we didn't clean up our act down here, if we didn't sterilize all the viruses, and if we didn't change our fossil fuels that are poisoning the environment, it's not about global warming. It's about poisoning the environment. I mean, why would you, if you smoke cigars all the time, and then my mom has asthma, I wouldn't invite you into my house, right? You will come over and we'll stay on the porch. Like, don't come in. That's a terrible, stupid analogy, but it's kind of true. It's like, we have to clean up our own house before we're invited to go visit their house. I mean, it's just that simple. And that's really what these billionaires are doing. That's what's going on, is that we have not only that, but look at the kids today. They're way more. I mean, they're not all there yet because they're kids. But they're trained, and their culture is way more accepting of diversity than mine was. I'm 50 years old. And my culture that I grew up in was single-minded, like not inclusive, like very. And so the kids today are getting ready to welcome other cultures here. And the next generation behind them are going to be really good at it. And so we're seeing them steer the ship into contact with intelligent species. We have to do these things to get ready. Some of them are in a hurry. I think it's a little too fast at this point. I think they really got the hammer down, and it's. I hope nobody gets hurt from it. But we are seeing positive changes in the world towards a disclosed society, because we're going to get away from the old way of doing things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The children being born right now are super, super special too. They're coming in with their DNA, more activated psychic abilities. I wanted to ask you, so for the people that could have been taken in any of these programs, negative or positive, what do you think is kind of like the criteria that you would have been chosen for either like psychic abilities or
the early programs tended to take people that were near the program. So in the 40s and 50s, the military personnel that had access, and they were going to go to Mars. They were doing the 20 back, let's just say that slice of the technology. They were doing 20 backs. Who do we take for a 20 and back now? Right. So they were like, it looks like a blessing living 20 years extra and then coming back the next day. You'd be smart, and it'd be a good thing. So I volunteered to take my kid, my cousin, my family member. right? And they test. There's genetic barriers to the technology as well. So not everybody can go. Not everybody can participate. There's just genetic, which makes sense that the humanity has many different genetic, fail safes, so that we all don't just get exploited. That some of us don't go, that our consciousness gets preserved and doesn't get exploited by in a negative way. So it makes perfect sense for that to happen. But so once they find people that are genetically compatible, now it's much easier to just take their children. And so what we see is there's a huge generational component to the programs, to the military programs. People that grandpa was in the Navy, dad was in the Navy, so and so they lived near a naval base back in the 60s. You get what I'm saying? Like politicians, great grandpa was a senator. We're seeing these people line up with the military programs, and that's how they're getting that. Firstly, secondly, then we have in the 70s and 80s they genetically tested everybody. They came for IQ testing, they came for psychic testing, unbeknownst to the kids being tested. But these programs for some reason want younger people. They don't like to take people when they're older. They want kids because they can be completely programmed and be optimized for whatever role they're going to be in. So they get taken, and they tested everybody to see what they were good for. So you don't take the kid that's not passing any of the tests. You take the kid that's acing it. You take the straight A kids, and that's who you want flying your spaceship for this. The other thing, the slave labor, they were under the impression on Ceres colony, I was not a prisoner. There are other things, other reasons. I don't want to go into a big long story, but they're taking prisoners, people that commit crimes. So slavery in the United States was abolished with the 13th Amendment, but actually it's perfectly legal because the amendment reads slavery shall be abolished except for somebody that's been convicted of a crime. Like if you read, like I could Google it real quick, but my computer's moving slow, so I won't. But go ahead and check it out, you guys.
Yeah.
So it's perfectly legal if you're convicted of any crime to be enslaved. And so it's perfectly legal. And that's who they're taking for the slave labor. They thought that I was a criminal. Like Ceres colony, there were a few times they're like, man, you're not like the other guys in your situation, because I wasn't a criminal. I wasn't criminally minded. And so I excelled at what I was doing and where I was. But that's how they justify it. That's what I mean. They had their own set of morals, even though it was terrible as slavery. Ancient Rome was kind of the same way. You could buy your freedom, and there was people that were fighting against the empire or conquered or criminal that were enslaved. So it's kind of the same system up there. It's little outdated, admittedly, but that's what's going on. So when people are taken, there are many different reasons, and you can end up anywhere, literally anywhere, working many different jobs.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I wanted to mention real quick on like a something benevolent that I've been seeing lately through my readings is people that are in like a secret program, but a one where they're like saving children on Earth and doing, cleaning up and stuff like that. I've been seeing that more lately. So I just wanted to throw that all out there as well.
I think that's another component to a disclosure. Like the same way we're cleaning up our act, in the same way we're changing a lot of things, these programs that have gotten away with being just completely inhumane and doing terrible things. Basically, guys with really no morals, and they're giving these toys, and they're abusing people with it. They have to be put in policed somehow, and they haven't been. They've gotten away with it because it was the early Wild West days of space technology, of this technology. So yeah, that's just another component of disclosure. We have to behave. We have to learn to behave.
Yeah.
And by we, I mean the people that are running these programs.
Definitely. All right. Well, I think we covered a lot. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions. And if there's anything, you wanted to talk about the conference that's coming up, and
oh yeah, so next week, the weekend after September 17th, I think I head out on the 15th. Let me look. It's Silicon Valley, and it's I can read the website for it to go look, but
you better not freeze the computer.
I know, I'm afraid to touch it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I just want to plug this conference because the concept is really good. So people that have, like me, that have been through experienced the secret space program have been invited to speak here, and scientists and tech people, gurus, and people that are in research and development in Silicon Valley are also going to be there speaking, and they're
Oh,
trying to
wow.
glean ideas from technologies that we witnessed so that they can patent them and give them to us. So I'm going to be presenting on the educational way. They want me to do, of course, they want a blueprint to an engine, which I don't know, but I'm going to present on education and just kind of defend myself, because whenever I'm around scientists, of course, they don't believe anything until you beat them over the head with a Nobel Prize, and I don't have that. So this conference is kind of big in that way, and there's some really big speakers. I think Nick Pope's going to be there, Richard Dolan, on and on. There's a lot of people, a lot of really good speakers. I didn't recognize it, but Chris O'Donnell, if I'm saying his name right, I might have screwed that up, is going to be there, and he's got some really good patents on technology that he remembers from his time in space.
Oh, wow.
And he's going to be presenting that. So this conference has a lot of, firstly, a lot of curb traffic. Like, he's not afraid to promote it. It's been promoted into the normies. Like, this conference is packaging my information to the normies. And so that's why it's kind of a big deal. So I don't know what kind of reaction I'm going to get. Like I said, I've kind of got my defense up, but it's not a typical conference in a way that they're going for patents. He's trying to turn this into money and advance everything. So with our information. So I'm really excited. I think the concept is just really a good concept, and it was only a matter of time. So there's that one. And then following in October is the one in Orlando, and it's a long name, the Galactic Spiritual something, but
just look up Spiritual Conference in Orlando in October.
Yes. And I'm really happy to meet Dr. Sala's going to be there. Jean-Charles Moyen, who just came out with a great documentary on his experiences, is going to be there. I can't wait to meet him in person. Elena Danan is going to be there. There's going to be a ton of people. Laura, I got friends that are coming in that were at the last conference that are just going to be like, it's turning into, I get goosebumps when I think about it. I'm going to see a lot of people that I just absolutely love. The vibe there is going to be, I'm pretty sure I will not have to be defensive at that conference. And because everybody's already just going to accept the information. Everybody's like way ahead of the curve on knowing this information already for that conference. And I'm very excited about both of these. So, and then nothing else on the books after that.
Beautiful. And somebody was asking, will there be a webinar on this conference or playback of it, of either?
Yeah, I think he's selling it, that there is going to be. So he's asked that because on my personal channel, he's asked that if I do a show on it, like a recap of the conference, that I limit it to a certain time, not a 2-hour show to go on YouTube, so that people will be driven to go see the whole thing on the webinar. There will be a YouTube, but it's knowing the way that it's going, it's probably going to be a pay thing, but it will be put out there for that reason. At least that's what it's sounding like. Let me try to freeze my browser real quick. I mean, grab the, if I can put it in the chat, I will.
Okay. Yeah. And I was going to say, for people that are watching the replay, I will put it in the comments.
So I'm not logged in. And I'm freezing up. Look at that. I just moved around. It's like,
it's okay. I'll post it. I'll post it in the Telegram group, and I'll pin it in the comments on this. If you can't get it, that's fine.
Jay,
or do you want to try?
Well, I can't. I don't know where I'm not logged in is what it is. I'm gonna guess. Jay, would I do a CE5 with a group of abductees? That's kind of not my gig, but I've been wanting to go to ECETI. I would love to, maybe if Lily ever put one on, I would love to see that stuff happen. I'm dying to go out and do some of that, but my experience with ETs is not the average thing. So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't poke the beehive too much if I can help it. But I would love to. I would love to go out and meet everybody and see how it all goes. I'm really, Lily, the work you do is amazing, and I'm so happy that you are just kicking butt the way you are and putting out so much content, because you're bringing people on board that have no idea what's been going on for the last 100+ years and for thousands of years on the earth. And it's like you're getting the truth out, but from a different, you're like mining it from a different mine, and it's great to see. And I'm so happy. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're all doing very, very important work. And yes, I'll take you on a CE5 sometime. Maybe we can go to E-Study. That would be cool. I'll introduce you to the benevolent ETs.
I know they're out there. I knew those guys were out there the whole time, and I would love to go up and meet. I would love to meet them. So
yeah, it'll be exciting. I think you will. I think that's why they were nudging me the past couple days leading up to this. They're nudging me about you. So yeah. Well, awesome. It was wonderful having you. I think that looks like no other questions or anything. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
We will be in touch. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.